If you come
No,
out,
I really respect this guy. I think he's brilliant. What
Yeah.
he's done, what he's accomplished, he's had 3 different careers.
Oh, he's great.
But I want to strangle him.
I thought, give me a break. This guy has jumped the evolution scale by about 1,000 years. If I hate him, and I'm somewhat normal, all my other fellow brethren will loathe him too.
Before he did Star Wars, I had just finished Rocky, and
Sylvester Stallone once described meeting a future co-star and instantly thinking, "I hated him the moment I saw him." That kind of raw honesty wasn't rare. It defined several of his relationships with other actors. And those feuds didn't stay private. They bled directly into the roles he cast, the rivalries he built on screen, and the legacy he left behind.
and I actually, and this is not disparaging George Lucas, whatever, but you know, after you've seen 100 people, you get tired. 200 people,
Today, we break down the 6 actors Stallone clashed with most, and how their animosity transformed movies into something more explosive than scripted drama alone. Before we move on, please take a moment to subscribe to the channel and like the video. Number 1, Richard Gere. Before Rocky made him a household name, Sylvester Stallone was hustling through small projects. One of them was The Lords of Flatbush, a film about Brooklyn street kids in the 1950s. At first, Richard Gere was brought in as part of the cast alongside Stallone. On paper, it seemed like a great fit. 2 hungry young actors, both trying to break out. But almost immediately, there were problems. People who were there remember the mood on set turning sour. Gere was confident, even cocky, and it clashed with Stallone's intensity. The tension grew fast, and then came the infamous story fans still mention today, the so-called chicken incident. Gere was eating in the back of a car during shooting, dripping greasy food onto Stallone's pants. Stallone snapped, and that moment supposedly sent their already shaky relationship past the point of no return. Soon after, Gere was gone from the production. Stallone later admitted he couldn't stand Gere personally, saying they never got along from the very beginning. That dislike didn't fade with time. Decades later, Stallone still made it clear the animosity between them never ended. Number 2, Bruce Willis. When The Expendables hit theaters in 2010, fans got something they had dreamed about for decades: Sylvester Stallone and Bruce Willis sharing the screen as allies in a throwback action spectacle. Along with other stars of the genre, it felt like history being made. For Stallone, creating the franchise was about celebrating the past, and having Willis on board gave the films extra weight. But behind the scenes, things shifted fast. By the time The Expendables 3 was in motion, reports surfaced that Willis wanted a massive payday: $1 million for each day of filming. Stallone, a man who had fought tooth and nail for every role he ever had, didn't take the demand lightly. Instead of staying quiet, he fired off a stinging message online, labeling Willis greedy and lazy. That single post announced to the world that their friendship had just collapsed. The exchange revealed something about Stallone. His rivalries weren't limited to training montages or box office battles. They were about pride, money, and respect. Even so, years later, Stallone publicly softened after Willis faced serious health struggles, showing the animosity never turned to complete coldness. Number 3, Arnold Schwarzenegger. In the 1980s, action movies were king, and 2 men were locked in a silent battle for the crown. On one side was Sylvester Stallone, already established with Rocky and Rambo. On the other was Arnold Schwarzenegger, a former bodybuilder turned Hollywood juggernaut. Every new release became a direct contest. Who had the bigger muscles, the bigger explosions, and the bigger box office numbers? Audiences didn't just watch movies, they picked sides. The competition wasn't polite. Stallone often sneered at Schwarzenegger's thick accent, dismissing it as laughable. Arnold, on the other hand, played a cleverer game. When he caught wind that Stallone had been offered the comedy Stop or My Mom Will Shoot, Arnold pretended he wanted the role himself. Stallone took the bait, signed on, and was left publicly humiliated when the film became a notorious flop. This wasn't just playful ribbing. These were sharp jabs aimed at pride. For years, they took shots at each other in the press, refusing to hide their dislike. But age softened boundaries. Today, Stallone calls Schwarzenegger a true partner, a brother in an empire of action, films they built together. Number 4, Jean-Claude Van Damme. Jean-Claude Van Damme entered Hollywood not as another action hopeful, but as someone with real fighting credentials. Nicknamed the Muscles from Brussels, he built his early reputation on high-energy martial arts films that looked authentic because he could actually do the moves. At the height of Stallone's run as a box office leader, Van Damme's sudden rise added pressure. His movies weren't just popular. They pushed a younger, flashier image that made studios take notice. This creeping overlap between their careers created friction. Industry buzz often linked Van Damme to projects Stallone's camp had circled, and that overlap fed into a rivalry that wasn't always friendly. The most absurd example came at a party Stallone hosted, when Van Damme and Steven Seagal nearly went toe-to-toe in front of stunned guests. Stallone later recalled watching the situation spiral, describing it less like a Hollywood mixer and more like a circus sideshow. Their dynamic was rarely smooth. Stallone admired Van Damme's talent, but often pointed to an ego that made collaboration difficult. Even so, when Expendables 2 came along, Stallone leaned into that real tension, turning Van Damme into a perfect on-screen nemesis. Number 5, Steven Seagal. By the late 1980s, Steven Seagal carved out his own lane in Hollywood. With films like Above the Law and Hard to Kill, audiences saw him as the cool, stoic martial artist who could snap a wrist with the flick of a hand. For a brief window, his movies rivaled the box office pull of established giants, and some even wondered if he might step into the same action pantheon Stallone was dominating. But Stallone wasn't impressed. Unlike the grudging respect he showed other competitors, he often brushed Seagal off as not real. When speaking of fighters, Stallone would point to names like Van Damme or Chuck Norris, who trained for decades and built reputations in combat sports. By contrast, his public comments treated Seagal more like someone who walked into Hollywood with attitude, but without the credibility to back it up. What made their feud different from others was the lack of mutual respect. This wasn't two heavyweights circling each other. It was Stallone dismissing a rival as a pretender. At his private gatherings, Stallone even encouraged jokes at Seagal's expense, showing the disdain wasn't whispered behind closed doors. It was a Hollywood punchline. Number 6, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. By the time Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson shifted from wrestling superstar to movie headliner, he had already built a reputation as a once-in-a-generation entertainer. Studios quickly tapped into his draw, and before long, he became the face of billion-dollar franchises like Fast and Furious and Jumanji. His larger-than-life presence positioned him as the modern action hero, the role Stallone had embodied in the 1980s and 1990s. But hints of friction surfaced during the Fast and Furious spin-off drama. Stallone posted cryptic messages during that period, leading some fans to believe he was quietly weighing in on whether Johnson's rising control of action franchises made him uneasy. He never attacked directly, but the timing and tone suggested a degree of skepticism. It looked less like open hostility and more like careful distance. What makes this tension striking is how Johnson's rise mirrors Stallone's younger dominance. Both built bodies, brands, and box office empires. That similarity created a symbolic rivalry more than a personal one. In recent years, Stallone has tempered any earlier doubts, occasionally offering public praise. Still, the comparisons between them continue in fan circles, keeping the rivalry alive in people's minds. Stallone's fights in Hollywood weren't just about pride or petty grudges. They shaped the image audiences came to love. Tough heroes who carried both strength and scars. Rivalries created urgency on screen, pushing him to go harder, sharper, and faster than anyone else in his orbit. What makes his story unique is how conflict became fuel. Out of every clash came motivation that built an entire era of action films. And now, the question is yours. Which of Stallone's feuds stands out as the most legendary? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe.